So how on earth did a regular grocery store, a place for apples and bread, pretty much figure out the internet before almost anyone else? This is the wild story of how Tesco, one of the biggest supermarkets in the world, tackled the massive challenge of selling groceries online when, let's be honest, the rulebook hadn't even been written yet.
And if you want to understand just how big their ambitions were, just look at this quote from Laura Wade Gallery, the CEO of Tesco's online business. Right from the get-go, this wasn't just about selling carrots online. No, they saw the internet as this gateway to selling everything to everyone, everywhere. And that single vision, it pretty much shaped every single decision they made from that point on.
But, before they could build that incredible everything store, they had to solve a much more basic and, frankly, a much, much messier problem. How do you even get a grapefruit to someone's house without it mysteriously turning into a cabbage along the way?
See, the funny thing is, the demand was already there. As early as the 1990s, customers were actually asking Tesco for home delivery. So the company started messing around with things like catalog and phone ordering. But without the internet to tie it all together, it was a total mess. People wanted convenience, but the tech just wasn't there yet.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The CEO herself was brutally honest about how bad those early attempts were, calling it an operational mess. She described it as basically a game of telephone, or Chinese whispers. An order would get taken over the phone, typed up by hand, and then faxed to a store. And at every single step, the chance for an error just got bigger and bigger. The result of all that was, well, total chaos. I mean, can you imagine ordering a grapefruit and a cabbage shows up at your door? This wasn't just a small mistake, it was a fundamental breakdown of the entire system, and customers were getting frustrated. They needed something better, and as Wade Gary put it, the internet came to the rescue.
Okay, so with the internet finally providing a reliable way to take orders, Tesco found itself at a massive fork in the road. How were they actually going to get all this stuff from the shelf to a customer's front door?
And this was the big question. I mean, all the conventional wisdom at the time said you had to build these huge, expensive, automated warehouses just for online orders. But then there was this other idea, this radical, almost crazy idea. What if they just used the hundreds of supermarkets they already owned?
Let's break it down. The warehouse model meant spending a fortune up front, building brand new buildings, often miles away from where customers actually lived. The in-store picking idea, though, it was the total opposite. The cost was super low because they were just using the stores and staff they already had. And because it was all local, deliveries could be way, way faster.
So Tesco went with the in-store model. And as you can see from this quote, pretty much the entire industry thought they were completely nuts. I mean, it sounds so inefficient, right? Having your own employees walking the aisles, getting in the way of regular shoppers. But Tesco saw this massive advantage that everybody else was missing.
And the system itself was just beautifully simple. An online order comes in and it gets zapped to the customer's nearest store. Then a staff member, they called them a picker, grabs a special trolley and basically does the shopping for you. The whole order is packed up in the back room, loaded onto a local van, and boom, it's at your door. They essentially turned every single one of their supermarkets into its own mini distribution center.
But look, that in-store picking model was really only half of the story. The real secret weapon, the thing that made the whole online experience just click for customers, was something they already had.
13 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many people were part of Tesco's Club Card loyalty program. And this wasn't just some mailing list. This was one of the richest, most detailed databases of consumer habits on the planet at the time. And they put this data to work in some absolutely genius ways. It solved that awful first shop problem where you have to build your whole basket from scratch. Instead, it just automatically filled a new customer's cart with all the stuff they usually bought in the store. It also let them do super targeted promotions. And this is the big one. It proved that online shoppers didn't stop going to the physical stores. They weren't cannibalizing their own business. They were actually creating more loyal customers who spent more money overall.
So the in-store model was a massive success, a home run. In fact, you could say it was maybe a little too successful. Because as online shopping just exploded, the very system that made their growth possible started to crack under the pressure.
Just picture it for a second. You're trying to do your weekly shop, and there are dozens of pickers with these huge trolleys rushing around the same aisles. It was creating traffic jams, the back rooms were getting clogged up, there wasn't enough parking for the delivery vans. The simple model that worked so well at the start was now straining at the seams. So they had to evolve. It started with simple in-store picking, but as demand grew, they adapted, turning some of their bigger stores into hubs that can handle way more orders for a much wider area.
And then, by 2006, they took the ultimate step. They built a .com-only store. Think about that, a supermarket with no customers, built from the ground up purely for picking online orders efficiently. It was a move that totally foreshadowed the rise of the dark stores we see all over the place today. All right, so they'd basically cracked the code for groceries. What was next? Well, they went right back to that original, massive vision, selling absolutely everything. And this led to the creation of Tesco Direct, their non-food business. But selling a sofa is a completely different ballgame than selling a banana. It required a total shift in their thinking. With groceries, the goal is freshness, so you stock it everywhere to get it to people fast. But that makes zero sense for a $5,000 TV. You can't predict who's going to want one, so if you stock them in every store, you'll go broke. For the big stuff, you absolutely have to centralize your inventory.
And this led them to create this new, really complex but super clever hybrid system. Small things like DVDs, they came from a central warehouse. Big stuff like sofas, they used specialist delivery partners for that. And really niche things like garden sheds, they were even shipped directly from the manufacturer. But the glue holding it all together was their secret weapon, the store network, which became a super convenient pickup point for every single thing they sold.
And this whole experience led to a really crucial insight from Steve Robinson, the head of Tesco Direct. He realized that when you're selling online, the customer can't touch the product. The image is the product. So he knew that controlling how that product looked, the photography, the design, the words, was a core part of the business, not just something you could outsource.
So when you put it all together, what you get is this incredible multi-channel master plan that just seamlessly blended the physical and the digital. They had a print catalog that drove sales online and in the store. They had their own in-house team to control their product image. And customers could order any way they wanted, online, over the phone, or even at a desk in the supermarket. They could even pay in cash by picking it up. This created a powerful experience that the internet-only guys just couldn't compete with.
And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? Tesco's whole story shows how they used their physical stores as their #1 competitive advantage in that first wave of e-commerce. It really makes you wonder, today, in an age of instant delivery from giant, faceless warehouses, what is the ultimate value of a physical store? Tesco's journey gives us one answer, but that question is probably more relevant right now than it has ever been.